Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. Welcome to another of my good, bad and ugly videos. Today's good, bad and ugly video I have chosen to focus on Val Kilmer. For me, he's actually one of my favourite actors. I've enjoyed an awful lot of what he's done in his career, but there's no denying it, he has made some pretty bad films as well as one downright ugly film. So we're going to get straight into it, guys, and we're going to start talking about Val Kilmer. And the first good film that I want to focus on for Val Kilmer is, of course, Tombstone. Now, this is arguably my favourite Western of all time. I think it's a tremendous Western. I think it's absolutely brilliant, in fact. And Val Kilmer isn't the only one that shines in this film, but he's undeniably probably the best thing in it. Kurt Russell is fantastic. Sam Elliott is fantastic. Powers Booth, Michael Biehn. It's got an incredible cast, and it is indeed an incredible Western. And if you haven't seen it, I definitely suggest you check it out. So, for me, this is right up there, I think, in regards to Val Kilmer's greatest performances. Probably, in my opinion, his best performance on screen. But now we're going to move on to what I consider to be one of his bad films. And the first one I want to talk about is a film called The Real McCoy. Now, this wasn't a starring vehicle for Val Kilmer. It was, in fact, a Kim Basinger film. And it is completely forgettable in every single way. I remember watching it when it first came out, and genuinely I couldn't really tell you an awful lot about it now because I haven't really seen it since. I just remember disliking it quite immensely, and you know, when you actually look at the reviews for it and stuff, there's not many out there that would suggest this is a good film, and it definitely isn't. I would definitely say this is not one of Val Kilmer's best films, and he would probably agree with me too. The next good film that I want to talk about, and this is a film I've actually just done a classic film review for that I will be putting up. I'm not even sure if it's going up before or after this video, but it will be on the channel either now or very, very soon. And it is a film called The Ghost and the Darkness. Again, arguably not a starring vehicle for Val, but he is definitely right up there on the poster with Michael Douglas. So it's a Michael Douglas film with Val Kilmer, but Val Kilmer, for me anyway, is the main leading actor in this film because Michael Douglas doesn't turn up until later into the film. And it's a tremendous film. It's a really underrated film as well. It wasn't particularly well received when it first came out, but it has kind of garnered a lot of respect over the years. And it's a story about in the late 1890s, I think it is, in Africa, and Val Kilmer is charged with building a bridge. And there are these two rogue lions that begin to munch on the workforce and end up killing about 130 of them. And he has to hunt them down, basically, Val Kilmer. It's a really, really good film. Definitely worth checking out. Now, the next bad film I want to talk about is a film that came out just a few years ago, really, and it's called The Snowman. Ah, what a shame. I was so looking forward to this one. I mean, it had a great cast, Michael Fassbender and Val Kilmer. I think I'm right in thinking at the time, I think he was he suffering with his throat cancer at the time? I'm not sure if his voice was dubbed in this. But I mean, it's just a really terrible film about this serial killer. It's got loads of flash forwards, flashbacks, and it's just really, really dull. It's probably one of the most disappointing films I'd seen, and definitely I remember reviewing it at the time, and I was desperately disappointed with this film. Such a shame as well. It did have an awful lot of potential. I think it was based on a very, very famous book, or a best-selling book anyway, but the film just failed to deliver any thrills at all. Now, the next good film I want to talk about for Val Kilmer is the Oliver Stone film, The Doors. Many would argue that this is, in fact, his greatest performance, and it would be hard to argue. Now, I'm not a big fan of the band The Doors. I don't mind them. I think they've done some really, really good stuff. And I have seen this a couple of times over the years. And if you watch that documentary that came out last year, that Val documentary, it's all about Val Kilmer's life. It goes into quite a lot of detail about how he prepared for this role in The Doors as Jim Morrison. And he just literally becomes the embodiment of this person. I mean, people at the time were saying, you know, he just looked and behaved like the real guy. And it's a tremendous performance. It doesn't get as much respect as it deserves, really, the film or his performance, but it's definitely worth checking out. A really, really fab performance by him. Now, the next bad film I want to talk about is Alexander. Oh boy, talk about a real dud of a film. It's one of those like historical films that, I mean, they threw everything at it in regards to cast and everything. They just forgot to make it interesting. It is absolutely dull as dishwater. And that's not Val Kilmer's fault, really. He's actually not bad in the film. It's just a telling of this Alexander story in such a really dull and uninteresting way. It's a snooze fest. From what I remember, and I've only seen it once, it's an absolute snooze fest, but it is not highly regarded at all, and definitely one to avoid. The next good film I want to talk about for Val Kilmer is, of course, the classic Heat. Now, Al Pacino and Robert De Niro get all the headlines in this film, but Val Kilmer, in actual fact, plays a really big part in this film, and he's quite a complex character in the film as well. He's got a heartbreaking end, if you like. But it's just a faultless film. You can't throw any fault at this film. Michael Mann has created a masterpiece here. It's absolutely incredible. Brilliant dialogue, incredible performances by everybody. Val Kilmer more than holds his own next to certainly Robert De Niro. He has generally most of his scenes with De Niro. I don't think he shares the screen with Al Pacino at all in the film, but he's really good in it. Everybody's good in it. It's just an absolute 90s classic. Now, the next bad film I want to talk about is Red Planet. Again, I saw this when it came out. I'm a big fan of sci-fi. I like it when they try and blend other things into sci-fi, like a bit of horror or a bit of action or whatever. And this tried to do that, but was just, it was just so generic and dull. Essentially, him. It's got Carrie-Anne Moss in it, and I think it's Tom Sizemore and a couple of other familiar faces. They head off to Mars to, whatever, usual sort of thing. And there's this, like, robot that goes with them that's supposed to help them and stuff like that. It all goes tits up, basically. The mission goes completely wrong, and then this rogue robot kind of turns against them and starts taking them out one at a time, and he's got to try and survive, all this kind of stuff. Sounds interesting, it's just not. There's no chemistry really with the cast from what I remember, and again, Val Kilmer's not particularly bad in it. It's just not a really interesting film at all, really. So the final good film, that I want to talk about is another of my personal favourites, and it is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. The chemistry he had with Robert Downey Jr. in this film was just off the charts. Gay Perry, this private eye who is trying to teach Robert Downey Jr., the tricks of the trade, how to act like a private investigator. They make a great pair, great chemistry, and for me, this is one of Shane Black's all-time greats. I mean, this and The Nice Guys are very, very similar films, and they're two of my favourite films of all time. I just really, really enjoy Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and Val Kilmer is absolutely tremendous in the film as well. So that's all the 5 goods, I believe. Now, the last bad, and that is The Saint. Oh, gosh, I was so disappointed with this one. Now, if you're from the UK, you know who The Saint is. The Saint was originally played by Roger Moore before he became Bond. It was a popular TV show. And then they brought it back in the 80s in the UK, and was it Ian Ogilvy, I think, who played him? And I remember watching this one more than the Roger Moore one when I was growing up, around the same time as The Professionals and things like that. The Saint was on the TV, and it was a very, very popular character and show in the UK. And then they made it into a movie with Val Kilmer, and it completely, for me, lost its identity. He was terrible. He was just walking around and putting all these different disguises and things like that, and the story wasn't particularly interesting. I think Elizabeth Shue was in it as well. Very, very generic and by-the-numbers film, and The Saint certainly deserved a better on-screen film than what we got here. Again, it's not really Val Kilmer's fault, I don't think. I think he just made a poor choice in the film. I think if they'd put more time and effort into it, they could probably have made a much better Saint. And I think Val Kilmer may have actually been okay in that role, but what they actually gave us was very dull and very generic, and just not a good film. Right, so that's 5 good, 5 bad. What do you think is his downright ugly film? This film is infamous now. It's garnered such a reputation, one of the most troubled productions of all time. And again, if you watch that Val documentary, I think it's on Amazon, he goes in to talk about that at great length as well. It is, of course, the legendary The Island of Dr. Moreau. Marlon Brando. What is it to say about this film? It's legendary. It's legendary because it's so bad. It's unbearable. It's unwatchable, in actual fact. Some people actually think it's kind of shifted into a cult classic almost. Personally, I don't agree. I tried to re-watch this one a few years ago because I wanted to cover it on the channel. I couldn't do it. I think I got about 15 minutes into it and I just thought, I can't punish myself anymore and watch this film. It's shockingly bad. I may attempt to do it again one day and watch it just so I can do one of my dumpster fire reviews for it maybe. But it's not easy to watch this film, especially when you know what was going on behind the scenes as well. Val Kilmer fell out with everybody on set here. I mean, he's got a bit of reputation, Val Kilmer, for falling out with people on set and this, that and the other. Some people corroborate that. A lot of people saying that's not the truth. I think if he had differences, creative differences with people, he would air it. And by God, he certainly had a lot of creative differences with the powers that be on The Island of Dr. Moreau, because they changed the director and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, legendary film this for being just so bad. So let me know in the comments, guys, if there are any films that you think I missed off this list, either good, bad, or even, downright ugly. Thank you very much for watching, and also let me know in the comments if there's anybody else you want me to focus on in regards to one of these videos, and I will certainly consider doing it. So I'm enjoying doing these new good, bad and ugly videos, and I hope you're enjoying watching them. So thanks very much for watching. I'll be back with loads more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.